Welcome to the Rosary Team Podcast. We are doing a deep dive today into the really powerful life and legacy of Saint Rafqa. She's a celebrated Maronite nun and saint from Lebanon.
That's right.
And we're not just going through a timeline of her life here. We're really trying to get at the heart of her sainthood because she's known as the patron saint against bodily ills and sickness.
Right.
And a huge part of that is because she actually asked God to share in the suffering of Christ's passion.
And that request is, it's really the central puzzle piece of her entire life. Our sources chart her journey, from her birth in 1832 all the way to her death in 1914.
Okay.
So our mission really is to look beyond the simple story of endurance and really try to understand why this deliberate theological choice she made makes her such a potent symbol of faith.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start right there in Lebanon within the Maronite Church.
Precisely. You can't understand Rafqa without understanding the deep roots of her faith. The Maronite Church is just steeped in the West Syriac Antiochene tradition.
And this tradition has a direct, unbroken line to Catholicism.
An unbroken line, all the way back to the 4th century. This is a faith that's ancient. And what's really fascinating is that this history is still alive. Some of their prayers in the liturgy are still recited in Aramaic.
The language of Jesus Christ himself.
A language of Jesus. It's incredible.
So that ancient foundation, that's the soil where her spiritual life begins to grow. She was born Boutrousse in Himalaya, Lebanon, on June 29th, 1832.
The only child of her parents.
But her early life, even before she thought about a vocation, it was defined by loss and hardship almost immediately.
Yes, very much so. Her mother died when she was only 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
And then just a few years later, around 1843, her father ran into serious financial trouble, and it forced her to spend 4 years working in service.
So she's just a child, really.
As a child. But the sources say she was just exceptionally pleasant, even humorous, a beautiful young woman with a serene voice.
When she finally came back home, she walked right into a family crisis.
She did. Her father had remarried, and her stepmother immediately wanted her to marry her own brother.
Okay, so that's one pressure.
And at the same time, her aunt was pushing for her to marry her son. It must have been this enormous, high-stakes conflict over her future.
And that conflict, that pressure, is what actually pushed her toward her vocation.
Ironically, yes. It was the spark. She felt completely trapped. But she was already drawn to a religious life, so she went to the convent of Our Lady of Deliverance in Bikfaya, just looking for some clarity.
And she found it.
In a very direct way. The key experience is right there. While she's looking at the icon of Our Lady of Deliverance, she said she was just overcome with joy and heard God's voice clear as day, confirming her desire. It wasn't just a decision, it was a divine call.
So that call leads her to the Congregation of the Marionettes. And they were a community that was, focused on teaching?
Teaching and service, yes.
Mm-hmm.
She received her habit in 1861, and was later assigned to a seminary in Gazir, where she managed a kitchen.
But she wasn't just, cloistered away.
Far from it. She used her free time to study Arabic, calligraphy, mathematics. She was actively involved in educating aspiring nuns. It was a life of very active ministry, both practical and intellectual.
And that active commitment was really put to the test, wasn't it?
It was, absolutely, especially during her time in Deir el-Qamar in 1860. She was teaching catechism right in the middle of these bloody civil clashes happening in Lebanon.
She didn't just hide indoors.
No. There's this one specific story, an anecdote, where she risked her own life. She actively hid a child under her robe to save him from being killed.
That's incredible. That's real physical courage.
Heroic courage.
So we have this intellectually engaged, courageous, active woman, but then her congregation, the Marionettes, they run into some kind of internal trouble.
They did.
Yeah.
And it prompted her to seek divine guidance again. She heard the Lord's voice confirming her call to religious life, but then this time it was followed by a very symbolic dream.
A dream. What was in the dream?
The guidance was incredibly explicit. She dreamt that St. George, St. Simon, and this is critical St. Anthony the Great appeared to her.
The father of monasticism.
Exactly, the father of radical, solitary monasticism. And they told her to join the Lebanese Maronite order. It was a definitive sign that her future wasn't with the active Marionettes anymore.
It was a call to a much stricter, more austere path.
A cloistered, strictly monastic path. That shift is a major spiritual pivot. It shows she was ready for a much more radical kind of dedication.
And she follows it.
She does. She was admitted to the Maronite monastery of St. Simon el-Karn in Idaho in 1871. And when she pronounced her vows a year later, she took the name Sister Rafqa in memory of her mother.
And in this new order, she became a role model.
Immediately, through her intense devotion to prayer, to silence, to sacrifice, she spent the next 2 decades in this environment. And you could say she was preparing, really, for the core event of her life.
Which brings us to 1885, the moment that just completely defines her legacy. And it's so startling because suffering didn't just find her.
She invited it.
She invited it. On the first Sunday of October, she's praying, and she asks Jesus to allow her to share in the pain of his passion.
And this is the moment we have to really look at closely. It wasn't just about, enduring some pain that comes your way. It was a deliberate theological choice to participate in the act of redemption.
And the prayer was answered.
Immediately. The sources say she was struck with unbearable pains. They started in her head and moved straight into her eyes. Her life fundamentally changed in that moment, from active service to, intentional suffering.
How would the Maronite tradition have viewed a request like that? It seems almost superhuman.
Well, it really emphasizes the mystical union between a believer and Christ's own suffering. For many in that Syriac tradition, bearing physical pain isn't just about penance, it's a profound connection. She asked to share the passion.
Which explains her reaction to what happened next.
It does. Local remedies failed, so they took her to see an American doctor in Biblos for her eye, and there she made another intentional choice.
She refused anesthesia during the surgery.
Yes. She truly believed that accepting the full force of that pain was part of the divine gift she had requested. The account is just harrowing. During the procedure, her eye became completely detached.
And she endured it without complaint.
Without complaint, without anesthesia.
After all of that, how do you even maintain that kind of spiritual resolve? It seems impossible. Were there any moments where her patience was tested, or was it just complete acceptance?
The sources really emphasize her unwavering gratitude. She didn't see the pain as a burden to endure. She saw it as a gift to be utilized.
A gift?
Yes. And when the disease then struck her left eye, intensifying the pain for the next 12 years, her reaction was to become this absolute model of patience. She would just continually pray in thanksgiving for the gift of sharing in Jesus' suffering.
This story of steadfast faith, it's just so central to the Maronite tradition. You see it alongside other great figures like St. Charbel Maclouf or Patriarch Stefano Douai.
Absolutely. They all represent different facets of sanctity within that same ancient church.
And for anyone listening, if you want to explore more about this incredible Maronite heritage, maybe see some of the sacred art and icons dedicated to Saint Rafqa, we really invite you to visit rosaryteam.com. Okay, let's get to the devastating final chapter of her life. This starts in 1897 when she was moved to St. Joseph Monastery in Drabda.
Right, and by 1899 she had lost sight completely in her left eye. But the physical degradation just continued relentlessly. She started suffering these serious dislocations. Her clavicle, her right hip, her leg, her body was becoming severely misshapen.
The sources say her vertebrae were visible through her skin. It was a total physical collapse.
And was.
But the accounts mention this striking contrast. Her body was ravaged, but her face reportedly remained shining to the end, and her hands stayed functional. Why is that detail about her hands so important?
That contrast is everything. It's central to understanding the theology of her suffering.
Yeah.
Her body was fulfilling her request for passive suffering, right?
Yeah.
Accepting total decay, a sharing in the passion. But her hands, those functional hands, they represented active ministry and gratitude. So even in the deepest agony, she was using them to knit socks, to make clothing for charity.
So she was thanking God for the use of her hands,
while simultaneously thanking him for the gift of pain in the rest of her body. She turned her passive pain into active, productive grace.
That dichotomy is so beautiful. That the saint who is knitting socks while she's immobile and blind, it makes her devotion so tangible.
Absolutely. And this is what solidified her place as an example of productive, grateful suffering. She passed away on March 23rd, 1914.
And her path to sainthood was quite swift after that.
Very. Her body was moved to a shrine in 1927. Pope John Paul II recognized her extraordinary life, beatifying her in 1985, and eventually naming her a role model in the adoration of the Eucharist during the Jubilee year 2000. Her life is just this powerful testament to accepting suffering with grace.
It's so clear why she is the perfect patron saint against bodily ills. She didn't receive a physical healing, but she received something arguably far greater. The ability to turn profound illness into a sacred, active ministry.
Exactly.
Her entire life was this journey of obedience, deep prayer, and just joyful acceptance of this hardship she had asked for.
And, as we think about her story, her example really forces you to look beyond just physical healing. It makes you consider the purpose of pain itself.
Right.
We mentioned that ancient connection to the Syriac tradition. And in our modern world, we're so desperate to eliminate all forms of suffering. Rafqa's life really challenges you to ask, is it possible that some forms of suffering, when they're accepted with intention and grace,
Like she did, using her hands while her body broke down.
is it possible they hold a spiritual value that we're currently missing?
That is a powerful thought to leave with. And if you have been inspired by the lives of saints like Rafqa, who show this incredible spiritual resolve, we encourage you again to check out the wide array of inspiring sacred art and learn more at rosaryteam.com.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Thank you for listening to the Rosary Team Podcast.